Hi everyone, it's Jen again. This is the second time that I'm recording this video because the first time I forgot to turn on the sound, or the microphone. So here's hoping that it goes correctly this time. I debated on whether or not I wanted to make a video because I'm still kind of working on the same things I've been working on for the last couple of weeks. This is just dialogue and my endings. Not really anything to look at, but I was having some conversations with some friends that got me thinking, and so I thought I would just share some of those thoughts. This is an old piece of artwork that I have that is from my dark period where I stopped drawing for about 5 years because I had left the comics industry, and I was just feeling like such a failure that I just thought to myself, I'll never draw again. That, just wasn't cut out to be an artist, and that I was just going to focus on other parts of my life and trying to develop and build up other aspects of myself that had been neglected, woefully neglected during the times that I had spent basically just making my life all about comics. And during this 5-year break, I was doing a Dungeons and Dragons campaign with some friends, and this was one of the characters that was in the campaign, was a halfling rogue. And I was approaching this piece of artwork with the intention of not making it anime, not making it manga, not making it cartoony or comics looking. And as you can see probably with this line, and how I kind of gave up rendering it, was because as I was rendering it, I was like, this still just looks like all the things that I'm trying to not make it look like. It still looks like anime, it still looks like comics, it still looks like animation, it still just looks like my stuff. It's still unmistakably just like my artwork, my lines, the way that I do things. And so I just kind of gave up on it when I got to this stage of it. It's funny because I look back at it now and I'm like, oh, I don't think this is bad. Because I'm happy with my artwork now, so I don't mind the fact that it looks like one of my drawings, because I'm happier with my drawings in general. So I'm like, oh yeah, cool, I'll share that. But at the time that I made this, it didn't see the light of day. I don't even think I showed it to my friends. I didn't show it to my Dungeons and Dragons campaign members or anything. So it's just funny what our brains can do to us, and how it affects our perception. But I'm bringing up this piece of art not to necessarily talk about my past, but to talk about my influences. And I guess I have 3 main points to talk about, my approach to influences, and I guess the benefit or the reasons why I think I do what I do. And I don't think that I consciously knew that I was doing this until I started having conversations with my friends, and I was like, oh, okay, this is probably a subconscious reason why I'm doing this. So when I am heavily influenced by something, I actually tend to stop, what's the word for it? When I want to do something, I kind of stop using that thing as my main source of entertainment. So when I was doing comics, I stopped reading comics as much as I did, before I started drawing them, which I know sounds kind of a little counterintuitive. And as I've been working on games, I have stopped playing as many games as I used to before I started making them. And one could kind of assume that it's because you're so busy making them that you don't have time to sit there and play them as much, read the comics as much. But the funny thing is when I do actually have time to kind of just decompress and kind of zone out to whatever entertainment, that's not what I choose to do anymore. I might play a little bit of a game for a little while, but it's not my main source of entertainment anymore. Whereas When I was drawing comics, I think games were kind of my main source of entertainment. And nowadays, my main source of entertainment when I'm not working on my games is reading novels. So I've had periods of like being a prolific reader in the past, and I've had, different, I guess, things that I tend to like. When I was working on comics, a lot of it was like playing video games and watching documentaries and different films. And now that I'm working on games, I would say it's mainly reading, because I'm trying to get away from screens partially, I think. But the other reason is because maybe there's something about games that's so many different like sensory elements. You have like the music, the sound, the visuals, the player input, and there's something about like reading just a kinetic traditional novel that's like absolutely none of those. It's just all in your head. And there's something about that that's like sort of a relief. Even though when I'm working on the individual elements of a game, it's not all those things at once, right? There is probably something about taking a break from the thing that you're working on, like just taking a total break from it, that maybe is a little bit more relaxing for me. That like subconsciously, maybe while I was working on comics, if I was reading on comics, I was still thinking about comics. And so I wanted to do something that didn't involve like the thing that I'm always thinking about. And the same with like games. The second thing that I think is the reason why that I do what I do is also because I think it ties into the first reason. It kind of helps me become a more complete person. If I have everything focused around like one particular medium, then like that becomes like my life, and that's all I have to bring to the table when I'm working on my games, is just more games. Versus if I have a lot of other experiences and story mediums to draw from, then maybe I can offer something to games that isn't just a direct alteration of something that's already been done. Not to say that I have kind of like the, I don't know, grandiose ideas that I'm going to bring something revolutionary to the medium. But even if I'm doing something that's already been done before, there's something about not knowing that I'm copying or I'm doing something that's already been done before that makes it more exciting for me to do. I don't know if that makes any sense. And then the third reason, I think, is because there will be no part of me that either consciously or subconsciously will be like comparing myself directly as I'm working on it. So when I was working in comics, if I'm just reading other comics all the time, then somewhere in my back of my brain, I'm probably going to be comparing what I'm working on to the things that I'm like reading and looking at, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But when I'm working on something with certain goals in mind, I don't want to be so easily swayed. And I don't want to get distracted with trying to make it something that is not. Just because like I happen to be comparing myself in a moment. I think maybe like after you're done with something and you're like kind of working in a refining stage, maybe that might be a good time to start looking at and comparing your work to see where you might be able to polish it a little bit more. Or in the very beginning stages, if you're looking for something to give you a sense of direction. But I think when you're in the middle of working on something, at least for me, I don't want to be wasting a lot of energy directly comparing it to something else. And one of the reasons why I also brought up this piece of artwork is because even though I was like trying to like make it not look like anime, make it look like comic artwork, and it turned out kind of looking that way, I think the reason why that it has that kind of like a general look to it, like this line that I can't get rid of, was the drawing instructor that I had in college was probably like the only really like art instructor that I've had that I really learned from. Like most of what I've learned in art has been from like practicing, self-discovery, looking at friends, what friends are doing, peers are doing, and getting kind of like tips from that. But as far as like having any like direct mentorship, the only time that I was really like taught was in a college course where I had an instructor who was a Disney animator, and the way that he taught us to draw was a very like classic animation training, classical animation training from like the kind of golden age of animation. And I really did latch on to his type of drawing because it kind of aligned already with like the things that I was trying to do. Like I've always had sort of a curvy, flowy line, and I've always been attracted to that type of style of drawing, kind of like a fluidy kind of style of line. And so it made it sort of easier for me to follow that type of instruction, as well as it like aligned with like what I wanted my lines to do. But my style never looked like Disney animation as far as like the artwork style. It never looked like, I don't know, Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, or even like, going back further, it never looked like Sword in the Stone, or, it never looked like a Disney character, even though like my lines always looked very animation-ish, classical animation style lines. And I think conversely, my stuff never looked like traditional, or I should say, like I don't think my stuff could ever be mistaken for this is a Japanese manga artist or the creative origin was like from the Japanese manga or animation industry. Like I don't think my stuff ever looked like authentically anime or manga. And I think, again, that sort of has to do a little bit with my approach of like not really directly copying or totally immersing myself into just that one thing. Always taking other influences and other aspects of my life and the things that I like and putting those in there. And I think that's one of the things that is kind of missing from AI generated art, is that it's pulling from the things that have been tagged a certain way. And the things that are not tagged to correlate with like whatever prompts you're putting in there are not going to be included. And something as like a human artist and a human experiencing life, for all of its flaws, we are great at making connections that don't actually objectively exist. Like we're great at humanizing things that are not human and attributing things to concepts that are not related, but somehow relating them anyways. And so that's what I like to do with like the projects that I'm working on. That's what I like to do with my art style. That's what I like to do with my stories and my games, my comics, all that kind of stuff. And it's probably not what's going to become popular. It's probably not what's going to be picked up in an algorithm or go viral or any of that kind of stuff. but it's what keeps me interested and excited to keep working on my projects. So, yeah, take that the rambling for what it is. Just something to think about. Alright, well, hope you have a great upcoming week. Hope you make lots of meaningful connections, and don't forget to enjoy the process. Bye now.